After the wedding, we're moving into your condo and renting mine to pay off my mom's loan, my fiancé declared, passing me a napkin with his handwritten financial plan. He actually expected me to smile and nod. Everyone thought I'd stay quiet, agree, and sacrifice my independence to save his family's debt. But when I handed his ring back at the rehearsal dinner, along with an official eviction notice for the condo he thought he owned, his mother's jaw dropped and he lost everything. Follow my story to the end to see how my counteroffer completely pulled the rug out from under him, and comment down below which city or country you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Chloe, I'm 27 years old, and I spent 5 years working 60-hour weeks as a project manager to buy my dream 2-bedroom condo in downtown Denver. It was my sanctuary, my proudest accomplishment, and the one thing that belonged entirely to me. 3 months before our wedding, my fiancé Julian asked me out to a quiet, romantic dinner. I thought we were going to discuss table settings or honeymoon destinations. Instead, halfway through our main course, Julian pulled out a folded cloth napkin with scribbled numbers on it and slid it across the table with a confident grin. "Babe, I figured it all out," he said, leaning back as if he had just solved world hunger. "After the wedding, we'll move into your condo and rent mine out. The rental income will cover my mom's luxury car loan and her moving expenses into that new gated community." I stared at the napkin, then up at him, completely speechless. He wasn't asking for my input. He was declaring a done deal. "Julian, my condo is barely big enough for the two of us, let alone all our combined stuff," I said carefully. "And why would my place become our home while your income goes entirely to your mother?" Julian's smile instantly vanished, replaced by a cold, condescending frown. "We're family now, Chloe. What's yours is mine, and my family's needs come first. You're being completely selfish." Julian's sudden defensiveness made my stomach drop. That night, while he was asleep, I couldn't stop thinking about the absolute certainty in his voice. He had acted as if my condo was already his property to manage. Driven by an uneasy gut feeling, I sat down at my desk and began digging into the financial documents he'd left on his napkin, alongside public land and tax records. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Julian had spent years boasting about his luxury downtown condo, but the official deeds told a completely different story. He didn't own it free and clear at all. His mother, Brenda, was a co-signer, and together they had taken out multiple high-interest equity loans against the property to fund an extravagant lifestyle they couldn't afford: designer clothes, luxury vacations, and leased sports cars. His plan wasn't just to cover a simple car loan. He was secretly trying to use my rent-free home so he could throw his entire rental income at defaulted mortgage payments on Brenda's house before the bank foreclosed. Instead of coming clean, the entitlement only escalated over the next 2 weeks. Brenda started dropping by my condo unannounced, walking through my rooms with a critical eye. She began talking about swapping my furniture for hers and casually mentioned that Julian's younger brother, a 22-year-old who refused to hold down a job, would be moving into my spare bedroom after the wedding. When I brought up my concerns, Julian brushed me off with a condescending chuckle. "Brenda knows best, Chloe. Besides, my brother needs a place to launch his career. You have plenty of space, and as my wife, it's your duty to help my family stand on their feet." I realized then that I wasn't just marrying Julian, I was being recruited as their financial safety net. The very next evening, I decided to test where Julian's priorities truly lay. Over dinner, I brought up our living arrangements with a calm, reasonable tone. "Julian, if your mother is facing financial pressure, keeping 2 separate properties doesn't make sense. Why don't you sell your condo entirely? You can pay off her debts with the equity, and we can start our marriage on clean financial footing in my place." The reaction was instant and vicious. Julian slammed his fork onto the table, his face flushing red. "Sell my asset? Are you out of your mind? My condo is an investment for my family's future. Yours is just a temporary stepping stone. My condo is fully paid off through my hard work," I replied firmly. "I am not going to subsidize your mother's lifestyle while you hoard your property." "You're being a selfish, ungrateful brat," he hissed, leaning across the table. "A real woman supports her man. You're supposed to be my partner, not a greedy landlord. Within an hour, my phone exploded with calls and messages from Brenda. She called me heartless, claiming I was trying to strip her son of his pride and tear their family apart. A good wife submits to her husband's family, she screamed through a voicemail. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. That was the exact moment something inside me snapped. The grief and hesitation vanished, replaced by an ice-cold clarity. They didn't see me as a bride, they saw me as a target. Instead of screaming back or breaking off the engagement right then, I took a deep breath, smiled, and pretended to back down. I needed them to believe I was compliant, so they wouldn't see my next move coming. The very next morning, I made an appointment with a top property lawyer. What Julian and Brenda had completely forgotten was a detail from 2 years prior. Long before Julian and I ever met, I had purchased a commercial parking garage space and a large private storage facility in his building during an estate auction. Even better, my property management firm subtly handled the administrative leases for several units in his complex, including the ground-level maintenance quarters and deed-restricted utility connections. Julian had signed a supplemental HOA lease agreement for his extra parking bay and storage unit through my firm without ever realizing I was the true owner of the deed. Because he was 3 months behind on his building maintenance fees and utility assessments, he was technically in severe breach of contract. While Julian spent his afternoons bragging to his golf buddies about how he had secured free housing for life by manipulating his naive bride-to-be, I was quietly preparing my defense. I visited my lawyer's office to execute a flawless legal counterstrategy. First, I closed our shared wedding expense account, transferring every single cent of my personal savings into an irrevocable private trust that Julian couldn't touch even if we were legally married. Next, I had my attorney draft an official termination notice for his leased garage, storage space, and utility access tied to my property firm, effective immediately on the date of our rehearsal dinner due to non-payment. As the days counted down to the event, Julian's arrogance reached an all-time high. He walked around my condo like a king inspecting his castle, ordering new furniture catalogs and reminding me how lucky I was that he was gracing my home with his presence. Little did he know, he was walking straight into a trap he had set for himself. The venue for our rehearsal dinner was an upscale waterfront restaurant, filled with 40 of our closest friends and family members. Soft ambient music played, but the atmosphere inside me was razor-sharp. Julian strutted through the room in a tailored suit, accepting congratulations like a king returning from war, while Brenda hovered beside him in a glittering evening dress she clearly couldn't afford. Halfway through the evening, Brenda clinked her crystal glass with a spoon and stood up to make an unannounced toast. The room grew quiet as she beamed down at everyone. I want to propose a toast to my wonderful son, Julian, and his lovely bride, Chloe, she announced loudly. Starting next month, Chloe has graciously agreed to open her home to us, allowing Julian to rent his condo so our family can take care of some important financial matters. It truly shows what a giving, submissive heart she has. A few people clapped awkwardly, while others looked noticeably confused. Julian smirked, raising his glass in my direction as if expecting me to blush and nod. Instead, I slowly stood up, smoothed down my dress, and picked up a crisp white envelope from my purse. "Thank you, Brenda," I said, my voice echoing clearly across the silent room. "Since we are making public announcements about our financial future, I think now is the perfect time to share my counteroffer." I walked over to Julian, slid his engagement ring off my finger, and dropped it into his wine glass with a sharp clink. Then I handed him the legal documents from my attorney. "Since you lied about your finances, defaulted on your mortgage, and expected me to pay off your mother's debt, the wedding is off," I said calmly. "And as the verified deed owner of your building's utility quarters, storage spaces, and garage, I am officially serving you an eviction notice for non-payment of fees, effective tonight. You have 30 days to clear your belongings out of my property, starting right now." The restaurant plunged into complete, stunned silence. You could hear a pin drop as Julian frantically flipped through the legal papers, his face turning from a deep flush to a ghostly, chalky white. Brenda's jaw dropped so low it looked painful. "You can't do this," she shrieked, her voice cracking as she slammed her hands on the table. You're ruining my son's life. You're ruining our family. No, Brenda, I replied, looking her dead in the eye. Julian ruined it the second he decided to treat me like a bank account instead of a partner. My parents stood up, immediately stepping in front of me as Julian began to shout. Chloe, wait. Let's talk about this privately, he begged, his voice trembling with desperation. The confident, arrogant man from 10 minutes ago was gone, replaced by a terrified man-child whose carefully constructed facade had just shattered in front of 40 people. We can fix this. I'll sell the condo. We don't have to move into yours. It's too late, Julian, I said softly, picking up my purse. I turned on my heel and walked out of the restaurant, leaving the chaos behind me. Over the next 72 hours, my phone blew up with over 100 missed calls and desperate text messages. Julian begged, pleaded, apologized, and even tried to blame his mother for the entire scheme. Brenda sent long, rambling voicemails alternating between furious curses and sobbing pleas for financial mercy. I didn't answer a single one. I simply forwarded every message directly to my attorney, blocked their numbers across all platforms, and hired a locksmith to change the security codes on my condo door. The boundary was set, and there was no going back. 3 months have passed since that night, and life has never felt lighter. After losing access to his parking and storage facilities, Julian was forced to list his luxury condo at a massive loss to satisfy his back taxes and lender obligations. Without his safety net, Brenda's home went into foreclosure, and they were both forced to downsize into a modest rented apartment on the outskirts of town. Meanwhile, I retained full, uninterrupted ownership of my home, my finances, and my peace of mind. Walking away from that toxic situation was the hardest decision I ever had to make, but it was also the most empowering. I learned that my self-worth is non-negotiable, and no partner, or their entitled family, will ever trick me into sacrificing my future again. I'm so grateful I trusted my gut and took control of my life before signing that marriage certificate. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done if you found out your fiancé was using your hard-earned home to bail out his family's debts? Would you have given him a second chance, or walked away like I did? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories.